All right. Well, hi, everybody. It looks like everybody who's listening to this live, I already know. But if you are listening to this as a recording, hello, I'm in the SCA. I'm Viscountess Genevieve de Vendome. I joined the SCA way back in 1977, and I was elevated to the Order of the Laurel for clothing back in 1987. So I'm pretty much a dinosaur, which makes me doing new things. I think is why my this last year I decided I wanted to try a bunch of new things. So I think that's why I'm talking to you today, because I have some lessons learned from that experience that I'd like to share. So, and I want to make this really clear, everybody's brains work differently. And I know I'm not a trained teacher, but hopefully I'll be able to share something that would be useful to you. So, getting right to it, I have three basic things, three pieces of advice that I want to pass on to you. If you want to start a new art or a new activity that you have never done before, piece of advice number one, set yourself up for success by doing a little homework before you start. Do some research on what are the materials, what are the supplies, what are the tools that are recommended for beginners. What's a good place to start? Also, what are some things when you are just starting out that you ought to avoid? Are there projects that are better to start with on top of just materials and tools? And there is a financial aspect to this. If you are just wanting to get your feet wet, you may not want to spend a lot of money, but you do want to spend your money on tools and supplies that will work well for you as a beginner and won't cause you to be frustrated, because you don't want to start an art and drop it because at the get-go things were just too hard, and that wasn't fair to you, and it's really not kind of fair to the art itself, the activity itself. So think about, where can you invest your money in the best tools for a beginner but not waste your money? And how can you save some money? So the example that I'm going to give throughout this whole talk is for tablet weaving, which was something I took up last year, and I had never woven a thing in my life. So for tablet weaving, you can cut costs by, you can make your own cards. You can take cereal boxes and make tablet weaving cards out of cereal boxes. So think about where you might save some money. Well, what are your sources for this? Well, we're in the SCA. Most of us listening to this are in the SCA. So we kind of have a built-in network that we can reach out to. It's either you can find someone whose work you admire and try to reach out to them and make some time, like, can I have an appointment with you to talk about this art? Where should I begin? There are interest groups you can sign up for either locally or, throughout the entire SCA. There are non-SCA interest groups online, social media that you can check out. There's always the library. You can check out the library. A librarian might be able to help you. There might be a source that you can get through interlibrary loan. And YouTube, I think, is a tremendous resource. So in my case, I got interested in doing tablet weaving, and I found there's a whole series of classes, which is a woman up in Ontario. It's like Weave Along with Eloise. And she has this whole series of YouTube lessons on starting with a very simple pattern and then building up in complexity. And every time you go to a new pattern, you're kind of picking up a new skill or using more cards, or you're gaining more confidence, right? And she also, thank you, Eloise, she had a resources list. And it was like, okay, here are some beginning threads to choose. So I chose cotton thread. And we're going to talk put that aside. Cotton thread is easy to work with. It's very strong. It doesn't catch like a wool or a silk, and it's less expensive. So I chose to go with cotton thread. I also chose to go with an inkle loom, which is an easy thing to get. A lot of people, I actually have one that someone lent me. They're very portable. So that was another tool that I chose to use. I did a little homework. People, I saw using them. You know, I bought cards that were cardboard, and they very clearly have colors on each side, and I was able to write on them the numbers. So I did everything I could to set myself up as a beginner for success. So, all right, piece of advice number 2. Define your goals and define what success looks like. And do this definition repeatedly, iteratively, and incrementally. So it may seem obvious to say, oh, my goal is to become the best tablet weaving ever, and I want to do an outfit in silk, right? Well, that's a very long-term goal. When I'm talking, and that's not bad, that's great. What I'm talking about is making short-term goals. And these goals can be like per the project you're working on. They can be just a daily goal. They could be, when I sit down to do this art, I am going to spend an hour on it. I'm going to practice my A's if I'm doing calligraphy. I'm going to you know, if I'm working on a Pell, if I want to learn to fight, right, I'm going to do 100. It might be a count, right? Define that goal. And then what does success look like? This is something that they bring up in project management, right? Success can be, I did 100 blows on the Pell. Success can be, I wanted to focus on this one particular skill, and throughout the project, I got better at that skill. It could be, you know, I want to memorize a song. I want to memorize the first 3 verses of this song in an evening, right? So define these goals and define what success looks like, and that will help mitigate feeling frustrated and that, oh, I'm not doing it right. I'm not progressing fast enough. I'm not perfect, right? But if you set these little goals and then you're very clear with yourself what is success, that's going to really help your mental state and give you more encouragement to move forward. And I will say, just setting up success, what success looks for you, is actually a really good skill to have in all sorts of other areas. Just as a side note, I am very limited with what I can do at events for a variety of reasons. So I'll go to an SCA event, but I'll have thought about it and I'll say, okay, my definition of success for this event is I took this class, I talked to person A, and I went to one court. And then if I accomplish those one things, then I have less fear of missing out, right? I can mentally manage that. And there is a lot of overlap between these first 2 pieces of advice, between setting yourself up with success by doing a little homework and defining what your goals are and what success looks like. There's a lot of overlap. And I'll illustrate this by saying what I did for tablet weaving, which was I decided being historically accurate was not my priority. My priority was just to get comfortable with using the cards and turning the cards and better understanding how the patterns worked and building my confidence that way. So I was able to say, yeah, I can use cotton thread. I'm not using wool like they would use. I'm using an inkle loom. I don't care that it was not a period thing. It's working for me now because that's not my priority. And I'll give you a little story. Someone told me, a fellow Laurel told me a story about how they had tried to take up tablet weaving, but like at the get-go, they wanted to do backstrap weaving and they did wool and they got so frustrated they dropped it and they never tried it again. right? Not saying you shouldn't be historically accurate. I'm just saying do the research to know what's best for a beginner trying to build their skills and prioritize that. So, all right. Let's see. I think that covers that. All right. Piece of advice number 3 is anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Some context for that statement. I don't know how other people's brains work, but I don't think I'm alone in thinking that when you start a new activity or a new art, you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable spot. You're either your own worst critic, or maybe you're in a culture or an environment where you're fearing getting ridiculed or maybe even gently teased. You know, you're making yourself feel very vulnerable. And add to that, in my opinion, we come from American culture or whatever, is that nothing is worth doing if you don't do it professionally, right? If you're not great at it at the get-go, people just don't want to put in the effort or think they'll never be good at it or whatever. I think there's a lot of pressure. But I think one of the things the SCA allows us to do is to have activities that we practice and just do it for the joy of it. So if you think by learning a new activity, whatever it is, singing or playing an instrument or weaving or fighting or rapier or whatever it is, if you're attracted to it, then you're probably going to find joy in it and just enjoy the process. And don't be your own worst critic. Don't expect yourself to be perfect at it right away. And yes, some people are better at things when they start than other people, right? I've known people who picked up embroidery and really picked it up quickly. My embroidery, I just do it when I want to for the fun of it. I don't want to invest the effort to really make it great. I'm not that talented in it, but it could be fun, right? And I talk to people, it's like if I'm not good at it right away, I just don't do it. Well, it's insulting to you, and it's insulting to somebody who has done this art for years and years to judge yourself poorly if you're not doing it perfectly right away, right? That's not fair to anybody. All right. So give yourself a break and just, enjoy the step by step. And if it's not great at the beginning, it's getting better all the time, or, over a period of time, it gets better. Just let yourself enjoy the process. Okay, so to wrap up, there are 3 things I want you to remember before you start on a new art or activity. Do a little homework, find out what is best for beginners. You might have to listen to a bunch of people with different opinions. So, get some data, make your decisions. Maybe you take a class, whatever. Second is make sure that you set goals and you define success, and you do it at a step-by-step basis. And then finally, remember, anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Have fun, do the best you can at each step of your skill building. And that's really all I have. Are there any questions? I know we were going to open it up for discussion, but we were going to turn the recording off.